What's going on, y'all? Machiavelli Mills TV. So look, let me preface all the statements I'm about to make by saying I'm a huge fan of the I Am Athlete podcast. I feel like the podcast is a great podcast with interesting personalities where we get interesting perspectives on several different topics. Topics that affect the black community, topics that I think that just are interesting dialogue that we probably wouldn't get from other professional athletes in another type of realm, right? Their platform is something unique, it's refreshing, and it's just great conversation, great dialogue that is necessary within like the black community in general. So I appreciate it, right? However, the episode today that dropped, I was highly disappointed in what I heard from the guests that they had on the show. And I was also disappointed in the fact that the host that I really love did not check that individual. Right, so today's episode of I Am Athlete, they had Dez Bryant, the standout wide receiver for the Dallas Cowboys. Dez Bryant was on the I Am Athlete podcast, and he proceeded to question the motives or basically insinuate that Colin Kaepernick dropped the ball and after the protest that he led, right? So Dez went on the I Am Athlete podcast, and then he called Colin Kaepernick out for not creating jobs, building jobs, and giving jobs to the people/community who were directly affected by the police brutality he was fighting against, or he's currently fighting against, right? Dez criticized Colin Kaepernick for not being there for the people who stood beside him and lost their jobs fighting for the cause that he represented. Dez then proceeds to ask Cap, where you at? Where you at? He said he ain't heard from Cap after he reached out. He says he reached out to Cap, but Cap didn't respond. He then says that Cap had no call to action after his protest, right? So I'm hearing all of this, and I'm like, okay, he calling Colin Kaepernick out for not creating jobs and building jobs and giving jobs to the people, to the black community who are directly affected by police brutality and so on and so forth. Then he says, where you at? It's odd hearing where you at from Dez Bryant, because me and a lot of other black people were wondering the same exact damn thing in 2017 or 2016, 2017, when Dez Bryant basically told the world he got a family to feed, when people were looking at him to possibly join Colin Kaepernick, to be in solidarity with that brother and stand up for the rights of African American people, stand up against police brutality that was affecting our community. We was looking like, where the hell is Dez at? We was wondering the same thing about Dez. Where was he at? Right? Where was he at? When that brother was on the front lines, Dez Bryant chose to stay quiet, to shut up, right? Because he got a family to feed, as if he's the 53rd man on the NFL roster, right? Dez was caked up at that point. Dez was an elite wide receiver for years before that. He was caked up. He had his bread, right? But he's steady. He didn't want to say nothing. He didn't want to get out of line. He chose to stay quiet, telling me he got a family to feed. So to question the motives or to make Colin Kaepernick look like he dropped the ball in that situation, brother, you never picked the ball up in the first place. You never picked the ball up in the first place, Dez. You never picked the ball up in the first place, man. You could have used your platform, you could have used your voice and your platform and your status to combat police brutality that was going on in our community, right? You could have been on the right side of history in that situation. But you chose to sit back, stay quiet, and then basically saying you got a family to feed, as if like looking at Colin Kaepernick like he was crazy for doing that, for jumping out there. And then to get on this podcast and act as if like Colin Kaepernick ain't did nothing after the protest. That shit was weak as hell, man. This was nothing short of a corny ass attempt by Dez Bryant in order to get back into the good graces of the NFL ownership, the owners, so he can get another shot in the NFL. Dez won another shot in the league because he felt like his career ended prematurely. Now, whether that's the case or not, to sit up here and try to drag that black man name through the mud in order to get to where to get back into the NFL, that's weak to me. That's absolutely weak. I don't respect it. I don't respect it at all. Especially when Dez had the opportunity to ride with that brother, and then basically, I got a family to feed and all that type of stuff, saying all of that. You know what I'm saying? I can see if that was coming from a player that was trying to make the team, that wasn't established yet, that hadn't made any money. But this was coming from a dude that was caked up. And he's saying something like this. So it was just like, huh? Well, if you're not going to do it, if a person that's established like you is not going to use your voice and your status to say something, so how are the other people going to do it? How are the other athletes going to be encouraged to do so? Right? So to act like he dropped the ball, brother, Dez better get his ass up out of here with that. We know what he on, man. He trying to say whatever he can to make the good old boys in the NFL happy so that he can get another shot, because Dez, like a lot of other young black athletes, have no identity outside of their sport. They struggle to find an identity outside of their sport. They've been known to be this great athlete in whatever respective field they were playing in. In Dez's case, he's been a terrific football player for the majority all his life. He was elite. He was standout, right? So he struggles today. He feels like that is where his identity lies. Now, some may say he may just have a passion for the game. He may just love the game of football so much that he still wants to play. That very well may be the case, right? But I think it's just Dez. I just find it just so clowned out for him to try to throw Colin Kaepernick's name through the mud and drag it through the mud. You know what I'm saying? In this whole situation, I feel like he knows that's what the ownership want to hear. That's what a lot of these owners want to hear. That's what a lot of these good old boys want to hear from him, because at this point he's drawn a line. Now he said, I respect Colin Kaepernick. He said that I respect him for the self-awareness. Then he put the but in there. You know what that sounds like? Yeah. I know you did that. That's cool, but we get all that. But that's what it sounded like to me, right? It sounds like he's drawing a line and saying that, hey, we need to look at Colin Kaepernick with a side eye now. Like he's questioning Colin Kaepernick's motives as if like he ain't really done nothing outside of that. Like he looking at him shiesty, looking at him sideways. When what the fuck was Dez doing at that time? He wasn't using his voice at all. He kowtowed and he shut up and he rolled and he basically stayed aligned with what the owner of the Dallas Cowboys would love him to be aligned with, Jerry Jones. He stayed on course. He stayed on code with what Jerry Jones wanted and not with what Colin Kaepernick and a lot of other black people were feeling at that time. So to act as if like Colin Kaepernick alienated the black community when he wasn't even there riding with us in the first place. Right now, he probably was in his neighborhood or whatever, something like that. That's cool. But he could have lent his voice to something bigger than that. Something bigger, the problem that we was facing, they still facing. And Dez refused to be a part of it. He got a family to feed. Like, what? Come on, man. Dez ain't want to upset the apple cart with the Dallas Cowboys organization or with the NFL fan base by riding with Colin Kaepernick. But now he's using a popular platform like I Am Athlete, right? A platform that's growing day by day. This platform is getting bigger and bigger all the time. I Am Athlete is getting bigger by the day, by the second. They have a huge fan base. And the community is expounding exponentially. And he knows that, which is why he said he waited till he got to a platform like that in order to address the Colin Kaepernick situation. You waited till you got to a place where your sentiments can be heard loudly. So where you can be heard loud and clearly. You got on a platform where your voice or that message can reach the masses. It seems like in order for you to get another shot in the league, man, that was sucker. That was some sucker shit at its finest to me. I don't give a fuck what nobody say. I don't care, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, to talk down on Colin Kaepernick when you didn't have a heart to stand in solidarity with that brother, right? When he needed you and other prominent athletes like yourself in order to back him up the most, right? When he needed y'all the most, when he needed athletes like you the most, you sat there, turned your back. Shit, ain't got nothing to do with me. Sure, I need my money. You know what I'm saying? I got a family to feed. Again, as if he was the 53rd man on the roster, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, he out here yelling, I got a family to feed, when people were wondering if he was gonna kneel. Black folks in the community was wondering that, right? And he stayed aligned with Jerry Jones. And then after that, he stayed aligned with what Jerry Jones wanted. And then Jerry Jones released his ass any goddamn way later on. Got his ass up out of there and dropped him like a bad habit. Then I remember after Jerry dropped him, a little bit after that, right? He acted like it was all good. But then eventually he was begging, his ass was begging Jerry Jones, who he loved so much because he talked glowingly to Jerry Jones. Like, he loved Jerry. It's just business with Jerry. He loved Jerry, right? He went back to Jerry Jones after Jerry Jones dropped him like a bad habit, begging for him to get signed for the league minimum. And you stayed in line with what he wanted, then he dropped your ass like bad dope. You know what I'm saying? Like, boy, come on, man. Like, Yeah, bro. Like, I don't give a fuck what Dez up there. I'm not, that shit, all that, I don't give a fuck what Dez got to say about what Colin Kaepernick got going on, because at the end of the day, he didn't have the, like, and again, everybody ain't cut for certain things. Everybody ain't cut for certain actions, and I understand that. But if you ain't cut for it, don't get up on that platform trying to criticize that other man for what he ain't did when you ain't did some shit you was supposed to be doing. We ain't hear your voice at all at that point, right? Furthermore, too, right? Talking about, you know, because when he says Colin Kaepernick ain't, he could have did so much to help people get jobs. He could have helped the people in this type of way, in this type of way, alluding to Colin Kaepernick not doing that. That's misinformation. This shit is false, for one, right? But furthermore, people ain't got to post every single thing on their social media for the public to hear for you to believe it's true or not. You know what I'm saying? You know, but all I know is at the point when Dez could have used his voice to speak up for us, and at the most crucial time, at a time when it would have been most impactful, the brother stayed silent and cut his tongue out his mouth. So I don't, you know what I'm saying? No, he didn't know. He didn't even stay silent. The brother said, "I got a family to feed." That shit was, I don't know, man. Like, you know, it's crazy, man. Like I said, Dez could have said a whole lot when people were looking for him to say something and to lend his voice when Cap was on the front lines, but he didn't, right? You know, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know. It's just, I heard him say that shit, and I'm really mad that nobody on the I Am Athlete podcast challenged that. Because at the end of the day, right, and I understand it, right? They don't want their guests to feel attacked. They got a personal relationship possibly with Dez. They don't want to, for the sake of conversation, they don't want things to get out of hand. They want just the conversation and dialogue to go on. They in a football fraternity with each other. They don't want to be attacking one another or whatever. But that's why they need regular people up there like me or the young lady, the woman that they had. Like early on when I Am Athlete first happened and they had the first conversation about HBCU athletics and HBCUs being funded. It was a black young woman on there, right? She had strong arguments and she was passionate, right? But they need someone like her up there to kind of like combat what he was saying and check him for a lot of the shit that he was saying. Because obviously Brandon Marshall and them, they not going to do it. They not going to do it, right? I just found it funny. He was like, Dez was so worried about what Jerry Jones would think and what the Cowboys would think about him. You know what I'm saying? If he supported Cap, he was so worried about what the good old boys was gonna say. You know, then he kept his mouth shut and all that. Now he's trying to come from speaking from another point and trying to talk down like he's he's on a vantage point higher than Colin Kaepernick now. Like, you ain't do this and you ain't do that, right? Again, and the statements that he said, the questions like basically saying he could have did so much with it and he didn't do it. Those statements are not only misinformed, but they contribute to this false narrative that Cap has done nothing for the people that he was protesting for. Because that's what, you know, the good old boys want you to think. He ain't do nothing for the people that he was protesting for. That's a narrative that a lot of the bigots love to spew, right? And then, like, Dez ass getting up there reinforcing them saying those same sentiments, that same rhetoric, right? But allow me to read you some of the things that Colin Kaepernick has done. Colin Kaepernick has raised $300 million for social justice initiatives with his special purpose acquisition company, right? He founded the Know Your Rights Camp that was literally partnering with an organization called Black Women Lead to pass out school supplies, masks, and hand sanitizer in Crenshaw, right? As a matter of fact, let's take it back. Let's take it all the way back to October 2016, right? That was a month after Colin Kaepernick started kneeling in protest against police brutality, right? In October 2016, he donated $25K to fund a program for 35 kids, including a van, computers, and entrepreneur training, right? In that same month, Cap gave $25,000 to Mothers Against Police Brutality. It was an organization to fund investigations against police brutality and change policy around it, right? Sound like he doing something to me, right? In November of 2016, he gave $50,000 to Justice League NYC and Communities for Police Reform, which both were advocating for reforms to stop police from conducting illegal searches without people's consent, right? Again, sound like he's doing a lot, right? In January 2017, Colin Kaepernick donated $25,000 to an organization called Black Veterans for Social Justice in Brooklyn, New York. $10K went to rent for veterans facing evictions from existing housing. $10K went to rent for homeless veterans to secure new housing. $5K went to employment training for veterans placed in new housing. And the $25K as a whole went directly to the veterans for housing and employment training, period, right? Furthermore, Cap is still currently and quietly finding other organizations across the United States, such as Leaders of a Beautiful Struggle in Baltimore, Maryland, and the Home to Heart organization in Atlanta, which provides homes for single mothers, right? All of that information that I just said to you all can be found with a quick Google search. So how dare Dez get up there and insinuate that Cap dropped the ball when established players like him, like himself, did not do nothing. You know what I'm saying? They ain't do nothing. They sat there and they wasn't willing to step forward for the greater good of the black community. They shut up, you know what I'm saying? And he down talking, his clown ass up here down talking Cap, but he got all this love and respect for Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones got his ass up out of there, right? Furthermore, too, this affinity that a lot of the black athletes have for Jerry Jones, this shit is a little strange to me. It's a little weird, right? Now, I say that because a lot of these people that play for Jerry, they act like they owe Jerry their life, like Jerry saved them from the wretches of poverty, like Jerry was just the ultimate savior. He's a hero. Listen, an athlete like Dez was going to get drafted by any goddamn body, period, right? The job of the NFL of an NFL team is to draft the players, find players who put them in best position to win games. Dez Bryant was an elite receiver coming out of college. He was going to put any team in the best position to win football games. So Jerry Jones then did what was in the best interest of his team by signing Dez Bryant. He didn't do Dez no fucking favor, right? He didn't do Dez no favor. He knew that Dez could provide a service for his organization in order to get revenue for his business, for his organization, period. That's what all it was. It was a business move. It ain't like I care about Dez so much that I want to get him out of poverty. Hell fucking no. Dez, you got drafted because you was that dude. You was a killer in the league. You was a killer football player. You was that man, right? And when you that man, anybody outside of Jerry Jones would have drafted him. Anybody in their right mind would have drafted Dez Bryant, period. You know what I'm saying? So he acting like Jerry was just the end-all, be-all. A lot of these athletes that play for Jerry act like he just saved them from the wretches of the lower rung of society, and like he was the one to do it. Like, bro, even if you was piss poor, broke, and you was living in poverty, any team in their right mind, these dudes is coming. These are elite athletes. They getting drafted because they know that they know these players can render a service for their organization where they can get revenue in turn from it. Right? Jerry ain't like Jerry took you from off the street out the grocery store and gave you a shot and you went and begged in his office and he gave you the one and only shot that you ever had to make the NFL and he gave it to you and you got in the league like that. If that was how it happened, I would understand that. But hell no, man. Like that ain't the case. Dez, he drafted you because he knew you was that good and he knew you can give him a chance to win football games. That's all it was to it, right? And then too, let me say this, right? Because Jerry has an affinity for drafting, and the people always say this, Jerry likes to draft guys that have trouble pass because he feels like his team is in, like, basically he feels like players who have a trouble pass play with an edge, which would give you a better position to win football games. And I don't think that's all. It has something possibly to do with it, but he knows sometimes he knows that controversy sells because Jerry is introduced. He is interested in money. He knows that controversy sells when that person is playing well on the field. He like that controversy shit. For two, he knows when a player gets in trouble, a la Ezekiel Elliott, he can get you out of trouble. He can do favors to get you out of trouble, right? But when Jerry Jones does favors for you, he tell your ass this, Jerry come to you like a pimp. He talk to you like a pimp or a pastor in the church that's out here being a pimp on the side. He tell you, listen, I helped you out. Now your ass better help me out and do whatever the fuck I tell you to do. And if you don't do what the fuck I tell you to do, your ass is grass and you cut. That's how Jerry come at him, right? And look, he knows if a lot of these trouble athletes, they gonna get into some trouble. If the ones are good and are worth keeping, they gonna get into some trouble, right? And Jerry gonna come save the day. But when Jerry come save the day, you gotta do what the hell I tell you to do. So if I tell your black ass, you better stand up for that national anthem like he told all the whole Dallas Cowboys football team. All y'all ass better stand up. You better stand the fuck up. And if you don't, your ass is grass. Because you got to remember what Jerry did for you because you couldn't stay out of trouble. Your ass couldn't stay out of trouble. Your black ass couldn't stay out of trouble. So when you couldn't stay out of trouble, Jerry had to come save and rescue you. And now that I done rescued you, right, you are indebted to me to do what I want you to do. So sometimes I feel like Jerry know it creates him to be in a position of leverage when he's dealing with troubled athletes because he can get them out of all type of bullshit. But then when I get you out of bullshit, hey, you don't have the same type of player mobility or the player empowerment. You can't use that over here because I got the power because I didn't get you out of a lot of situations and not a lot of trouble. Like, so you got to kowtow to what I want you to do and stay in line over here in this goddamn shit. Ain't no bucking the system over here. You do what the fuck I tell you to do, period. And some people like, all employers are like that. Nah, that shit, nah. The NFL and NBA is different. You know what I'm saying? Jerry know. Jerry knows. We got Ezekiel Elliott out of trouble. And then and Jerry said, I earned that right. Or something like that. You know what I'm saying? He know. Ezekiel Elliott his hard-headed ass was getting in trouble. And Jerry getting you out of trouble. You better do what he tell you to do. And that's how he coming with it, period, right? But I'm just pissed off because Dez out here making unfounded claims against a man like Colin Kaepernick that has proven work that I just regurgitated to you all on this video, right? Come on, Dez. I don't like that shit. Putting him down, putting Colin Kaepernick down. Like on that platform, like that, slandering that man, folks. Like you can do your own work and put your own work in without slandering Colin Kaepernick. That shit was foul to me, man. That shit was corny as hell. Dez just won another shot in the league, man. He won another shot in the league. And him saying I had a family to feed. I got a family to feed when he was in the league. I wasn't riding with that. That shit ain't sound solid and certified to me. Cause he wasn't a dude that was out here on a minimum contract, on league minimum. Right? He made big guap at that point. So I'm sure his family was fed handsomely at that point. You know what I'm saying? So for him to say that, bro, you just say you wasn't cut like that. You ain't cut like that. You was scared. You wanted to do whatever Jerry Jones told you to do, and then they cut your ass later on. You felt like if you said that you was going to go against Jerry and Jerry was going to get mad, so you stayed in line, and then he cut you later on after that. Right? Again, and then he was out here. First he acted like he was all cool, and then he went up there, he's begging Jerry to come back, begging to sign with the Cowboys for league minimum and all of that, right? But then too, it's kind of interesting the way he's attacking Colin Kaepernick right now, and people say it's not an attack. Maybe y'all saying it's a reach, but that was some drag your name through the mud, smearing his name type of shit, trying to say he dropped the ball. That's clown shit to me, and I found it odd because I remember not too long ago, when he wasn't in the league, when Dez wasn't in the league, and these owners, NFL owners, they was done with his ass. They told his ass he was damaged goods. He wasn't no good no more. He started getting on to the pro-black train. He started riding with black folks, trying to act like he was all with black folks and trying to galvanize all black folks on Twitter with trying to speak conscious rhetoric a little bit, right? And in a moment, he get on this platform, and maybe, I don't know if he's hearing that he could potentially sign with a team now. The moment he get on this platform, he spit some shit that's not in the best interest of the black community. You know what I mean? He spit some stuff against a dude who was out here putting in work for the black community, that was out here basically put his career on a line for the black community. You speaking ill of him and questioning him and what he's done what you did. You know what I'm saying? Like that shit lame as hell to me. I don't respect it at all. I don't respect it at all. First you went from trying to talk, you was out. First you said you got a family to feed and all of that. Then you went the conscious route when you found out the owners wasn't rocking with your ass no more. And it was a chance that you wasn't going to get in the league anymore. You tried to go and try to act like you tried to galvanize the black Twitter and black troops on Twitter. You tried to galvanize the black community and act like you was all for one for all. And acting like you was going to be the next dude to be in line to be talking about all these black conscious issues and all of that. But now when you get on that platform that's growing and is getting popular about a minute and about a second, brother, you get on I Am Athlete, you throw Colin Kaepernick under the bus, man. I didn't appreciate that. That was weak, and I feel like that was weak, and I feel like Brandon Marshall and them should have provided some pushback to what you were saying. Regardless of the relationship that they have with you, somebody should have tried to refute that, right? And maybe they didn't have the facts on hand. You know what I mean? They didn't have the facts, all the stuff in hand, because you can't know all the stuff that Colin Kaepernick has done off the top of your head sometimes. But it's just like, bro, for you to say that and try to act like that meant what he ain't did this and what was the call to action and he could have did this and could have did that, when you ain't had a heart. You ain't had a heart to stand in solidarity with him. You ain't had none of that in you. You ain't had none of that beating in your chest. to stand in solidarity with that brother when you had already made your bread. That was the thing about it, man. Yeah, bro, I ain't. And again, I know it's hard. Everybody ain't, and I understand a working dude is just trying to make a living and ain't got not that much. I understand him. Not everybody. I ain't saying everybody got to stand for the. Everybody got to kneel for the national anthem, right? But if you gonna come out and criticize Colin Kaepernick, and you ain't did something, you ain't use your voice and platform, that shit is highly hypocritical to me. You ain't use your platform, you ain't use your voice, but you trying to come out and talk about how he could have did this and could have did that. Well, you could have did a lot of shit, Dez. You could have did a lot of shit differently. You know, so I ain't riding with that. I don't like that at all. Spewing that rhetoric that a lot of them bigots love to spew in the direction of Colin Kaepernick. I ain't letting that shit ride. That shit weak as hell. It's weak as hell, man. And I'm highly disappointed from what I heard from Dez Bryant. Highly disappointed. But I'm also disappointed that nobody provided pushback, man. I feel like they need, and I understand it because they don't want to make Dez feel attacked, but they need somebody, a regular person up there that can provide a different perspective, who are not cool with these NFL players. They don't have a relationship with these athletes, so they're not worried about severing a relationship with the athlete or making them look bad. Because me, like I said, you can still respectfully check somebody and tell them, hey, no, that ain't the way to go. That ain't it. Because that shit ain't it. That shit ain't it at all. Dez, as I remember, Dez was out here trying to look for a job. He begging for a job to come back in and all that type of stuff, right? All that. Jerry dropped him like a bad habit. He loved this with Jerry Jones. Love Jerry Jones. Love Jerry Jones. But coming in dragging Colin Kaepernick name through the mud. Shit ain't solid. Shit ain't solid at all. I don't rock with it, man. Machiavelli Mills TV. Y'all let me know what y'all think in the comment section below. Like the video. Subscribe to the channel. Share the video. I'm out. Peace.